Hey there, just a quick heads up before we get into the episode this time. I did something a little different this time and while visiting my wife's family and I guess there might as well be family in California, close family friends, and we all got around a kitchen table and recorded in person with a bigger group. So throughout there are going to be some background noises, some thumps on the table, dogs walking around the room. But once we get into the introductions, a couple minutes in, most of it goes away, but the table does get bumped throughout. I did my best to edit around it all, but the words that were being spoken, especially on this topic, just felt more important. So I thank you for your understanding, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Sly History.
Stories.
So
I'm good at this, apparently.
What is? She says apparently because
I
she
didn't
doesn't
mean to
listen.
say apparently. I don't know what I meant to say, but
like from other people, you've heard that because he hasn't interviewed you.
No, but I have listened
I know.
to
I
his
give you a hard
podcast.
time.
Wait, what are the stories that you're pulling out?
Wait, can we go back and say what it is just that we're doing?
Yeah. So
Why am I here?
yeah, why are you here specifically? So one thing that I wanted to do with the podcast, the whole reason for it, the idea was I want to have something for Ezra to listen to when he grows up. So he has the stories from family members because so many of my family members are so much older. Like I don't even have memories of my brothers as kids, like I'm learning stuff about them because they're so much older than me. I just have memories of them as adults.
Yep.
And so because I can't interview Trish for her to tell her story, I'm wanting to finish her book. So collect all those stories that she wanted to finish. And then 2, share the stories. Kind of have her tell, her life story in a way. But in reading it, any stories that come up with people where people are actually mentioned, I want to read them with.
And read as in read her words?
Read her words.
Okay.
Yeah. Just read what she wrote. And honestly, I'd like to learn more about her since I never got to meet her. And so what better way than the people who she wrote about?
Get the tissues.
So what are the names of the stories we're doing?
So I have her forward, which could be just a good introduction. And then we have One Fish, Two Fish, and Color Coded Wedding are the 2 stories.
What are the page numbers for them?
35 and 46. Cool. Yeah.
One fish, two fish.
Yeah.
Do you know that one?
No.
So I thought we would introduce everyone at the table since we're doing this. So
Farmer Wayne.
The one and only.
Tonight, I asked Ezra what book you wanted to read because Hannah had all his books out. And
She
so
had them out.
I put them out and I was like, okay, what do you want to read before bed? And he picked it up and goes, Farmer Wayne. So now that book is forever called Farmer Wayne.
The Farmer Wayne book.
After you. So we have Rachel, my wife, and then her 2 siblings. Hannah, say hello.
Hi.
Yeah. And then Matt. Anything at all? No?
I won't do what you tell me.
Okay, that works for me. And then Rachel, who's been on before, only in passing. Do you want to say hello?
Hi.
Yeah, there we go. We get your voice a little bit.
Okay.
And then we have the star of some of these stories, Marilyn.
Hello.
Hello.
Special celeb. of the
And her
episode.
husband, Farmer Wayne, aka John.
Hello.
In case we're gonna add anything in. This is actually the biggest group. I've never actually recorded with a group before, so this is gonna be interesting.
Never fly?
Huh?
Never in person?
Well, I recorded with Mom in person the first
that's
time.
Never mind. I thought we
yeah.
were going to have it first, but.
No, just the first time using the full group. But yeah, so Trish's book, A View from the Porch Swing, which I'm surprised at how many stories that were in here when I was just reading through it I'd heard before, which was strange because I never expected there to be that many. But Julia talks a lot. I was going to say every single one of these.
No
was like-
argument.
I know it's from Julia. When I recorded with her, we talked, no joke, for 4.5 hours.
Wow.
And I cut it down to about an hour and 20 minutes.
Wowza.
Yeah. Look, you get the two of us in a room.
Oh my God.
It's whew.
I mean, those are rookie numbers for an Aunt Julia conversation. Really.
Only 4 hours?
That's true. We were working real hard there. So before we start, is there anything anybody wants to say before I start reading? Just the foreword, Trisha's words to kind of how she wanted to start it all.
I just want to remind John that I think you were sort of attached to the business trip that's going to be the one fish, two fish story, because that's the trip that you met us in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a business meeting that she and I had. So pay attention because you know more about this than you probably remember.
Okay.
Is this like y'all knew each other before and met up there, or is that where y'all met?
So Trish and I worked together. John and I were married,
Oh, okay.
and he had a business trip separately. We had no kids at that
Mhm.
point. So Trish and I were over there on a business trip, and he was on a different trip. And we ended up meeting up, and he joined us for a weekend or something like that. I know
Something
that
like
we did some
7 days.
touring and whatever, but yeah. So
And that's-
he was on the fringes of this whole story as well. So I want him to remember that.
Could have some fun details thrown in there. Okay, so this is her forward. I've always been glad and proud of my southern roots and upbringing. My childhood in a small southern town in Central Florida wasn't remarkable or exceptional. Surviving infancy was a little bit on the remarkable side due to a liver birth defect. In 1962, my survival was a mistake thanks to a gifted surgeon.
Miracle. You just said mistake.
In 1962, my survival was a miracle thanks to a gifted surgeon by the name of Dr. Robert Gross. So, how about my life? My childhood was simple. I was the fourth child of 5. My mother was a homemaker for much of her married life, and my father was a family practice physician in the days when you still called them a country doctor. He was still doing house calls during my early youth. I went along with him on a few of them. I grew up in a town where you knew everybody and everybody knew you. I grew up in a church where the kind ladies of the church still referred to me as the miracle baby when I married my husband in 1987. My mother managed to raise the 5 of us in a way that we all avoided any serious brushes with drugs, alcohol, or tobacco products. I'm now raising 3 and can really marvel at that feat. My parents celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a wonderful celebratory gathering. It was unfortunately less than 2 years before my mother's death in 2004. Death is part of life, and I'm happy to say that I'm part of a family that makes every effort to enjoy and celebrate all of life's milestones, both big and small. They may seem like a blip on the radar in the grand scheme of things, but these events create memories to cherish. Many published authors have proven that in the everyday telling of everyday life of everyday people, there's a lot we can all relate to and find humor in. Did these things really happen? You bet. Are there embellishments? You bet. These stories follow the 80-20 rule. They are 80% fact and 20% embellishment. I have centered all of my stories around people and events in the South. It's what I know and live every day. We Southern folk always know how to laugh at ourselves. Pray my friends and family are no exception. Only a few names were changed to protect the innocent, while the guilty are called by their first, middle, and even last names where possible. This is good stuff. It makes me happy. I'm excited to hear what John has to add to the story. Because that's my favorite.
He's like, oh man.
Honestly, that's my favorite.
This is
part
the
of
fish head story, right?
It. Yes, it is.
Oh, it's that one.
That story.
That was very peripheral. I was in the same country.
Are y'all ready?
Ready. Are you ready?
Maybe. I'm a little stuffy and.
Do you
I'm
want
prone
me to try to
tears.
read it? I might be better.
If you would like to read it, you
Yeah.
can. Yeah, I don't mind other people reading it.
Okay. Do you want me to just go ahead and go into it?
Yeah.
All right. In 1989, I was asked to travel on business to Europe. The trip was to consist of 10 days in Munich, Germany, followed by a quick couple of days in Paris and 1 day in London. A whirlwind trip to Europe, my first and so far my last. The primary purpose of the trip was to assist in providing software training to a collection of international distributors. I was accompanying the instructor, Lisa, and my good friend and coworker, Marilyn. One of the first things I can recall about the trip was driving the rental car past the McDonald's fast food restaurant after we had landed in Munich for the first leg of our trip. My traveling companions and I looked down our noses at the establishment. We wouldn't be caught dead in that place while we're overseas. Heck no, not us. We're here to experience foreign cuisine. Famous, pitiful last words. After 10 days of heavy German food, I would have killed for a quarter pounder and a cold, truly cold glass of milk. From Germany, Marilyn and I continued on to Paris, France, to visit one of the contacts from one of our French software distributors. We were thrilled to learn that he had planned lunch for us at a white linen tablecloth restaurant. We were ready for new cuisine. Our host for lunch was Vincent. When we arrived for lunch, we discovered that the text of the menus was completely in French and the waiter spoke no English. We asked Vincent to translate for us. Vincent insisted that we each select an appetizer. The only item that sounded like a possibility to me was something he said was simply fried fish. I'm rather fond of fish, and everyone knows that Southerners eat almost anything that's fried. It sounded safe enough. However, the word fish is so ambiguous. It can mean one thing, and it can mean many. It can mean way, way, way too many, as it is in this case. I was naive enough to believe they'd be bringing me something that resembled the tasty fried fish you find at Captain D's or Long John Silver's. Sure, why not? Total mortification overcame me when they put the plate of fish under my unsuspecting nose. It was a small plate with a pile, yes, pile, of 30 lightly battered fried minnows.
Yeah.
The chef had failed, apparently on purpose, to remove the heads, eyes, fins, tail fins, and scales of these little fish. On the inside, I was dying. How am I going to get through just the appetizer, let alone the rest of the meal? Please understand that my friends call me Plain Jane when it comes to my eating habits. I can't order a meal without saying, hold everything, and I routinely stay away from international cuisine like Japanese, Chinese, and Indian, to name just a few. Mom always taught me, however, that you have to eat absolutely everything on your plate when you are a guest of someone else. My mind was racing. I was wondering if yelling fire in a public place was punishable by flogging in France. One look at the little beady fish eyes, and I was willing to risk that and much worse. Could I get away with stuffing them into my napkin one by one? I couldn't use my old trick of shifting food around on my plate to make it look as if I had actually eaten something. It was one small plate and no room to spare. The little mound of fish with beady eyes awaited me. It took me quite some time to extract my eating utensils from the linen napkin which held them. Then I asked for a glass of ice water. A very large glass of ice water, please. I was going to need something to wash down those fish. I was sure of one thing, they were going to pass very quickly through my mouth. I wasn't planning to sink my teeth into any of them. Let them slip right on down my esophagus to my tummy, which was already alive with extra gastric juices due to extreme fish distress. Where is a goldfish swallowing contest when you need one? I was sure I was about to win a blue ribbon. After swallowing several of them whole, I glanced about the table at my dining companions. Everyone seemed to be enjoying their meal. Couldn't they tell I was in agony? Couldn't someone please rescue me? No such salvation in sight. I continued my valiant effort to eat the minnows, one good swallow at a time. Marilyn, my traveling buddy, was enjoying the moment. Her appetizer looked very appealing. Of course, I should point out that the fillet of squid would have looked scrumptious at this stage of the game, and all of my friends know that I detest squid. Marilyn lifted a succulent morsel of her appetizer to her lips and remarked, "Trish, this is really delicious. Would you like to try some?" She was smiling from ear to ear. Here was my chance. "No, thanks. These are really filling. I'm sure I won't be able to eat them all. Please, Marilyn, have one. They're delicious." She hesitated. Vincent, our host, flashed a very sheepish smile at me, and he said, "It's okay, Marilyn. Try one. People typically eat them by cutting the heads off first." I had managed the previous 15 minutes without choking back up the many fish I had already eaten, but as his words sunk in, I felt a few swimming their way back up. I could have choked Vincent. He wasn't grinning on the outside, but I could tell he was laughing on the inside. Oh my, was he laughing on the inside. What became of those fish? I ate every last one until there were none left on my plate. Let the record show that I ate them heads and all. Let them say Americans, even Southerners, don't have a taste for real food. Never mind that every French person in the room was probably sitting there thinking, those silly Americans will eat anything. Have they no taste?
That is disgusting.
Wow.
That was Mom. She
she
loved
it.
telling that story too.
I can't believe she.
So I remember when the knife and the fork came out after he gave her permission, and here she is, teeny minnows with her knife and fork trying to cut the little heads and the little tails off, and it was the funniest dang thing I ever saw.
Oh.
I didn't actually love mine. I had couscous,
Mhm.
which whatever.
Yeah.
But boy, was it delicious! I was watching her eat that.
Everybody else's food was better
Oh
because
my
of
god, it was so funny.
It makes me think of the Greece.
I was thinking exactly.
I ordered.
History repeated itself.
Yep,
in
I
Hannah.
ordered a plate of fried shrimp because I thought that was safe in Greece, and they brought me a ginormous plate of fully fried shrimp with the heads, eyes, everything looking at me. And
Did you eat any of them?
I couldn't
You're supposed to suck the brains out.
Oh my god, we were laughing so hard.
She finally felt bad enough for me to cut the heads off for me so that I could eat the rest of it. But I was suffering. I totally feel like
Were you having just flashbacks?
It was totally, but it was so funny. And this guy was the nicest. His name was Vincent, was
Yeah.
the French way that we said it, but he was actually Swedish, and he was the nicest guy you'd ever meet. And but you could tell by the little smile on his face, he was going to let it go on as long as he could.
Oh my god!
And it was so funny when he finally took pity on it.
But you didn't bail her out.
You know, there was no way I was going to eat those things either. Couscous never looked or tasted so good.
And she was pickier than you. So
Oh, so much pickier
Then
than me.
what was the rest of the meal?
Yeah, because the rest of it wasn't even.
So I
mentioned.
don't even remember. What I do remember was sitting down at this white tablecloth meal, and they had written our names on the glasses.
Mhm.
So we felt so special because it was a business lunch, but
Yeah.
it was a fancy place, and in beautiful cursive had written our names. I think they misspelled it, but didn't matter. It was fun to see.
Yeah.
And then having this lovely meal. And then the appetizers came out, and it was just so funny. I don't remember anything past the appetizers because it really didn't matter. But that was the same trip where you joined us in Paris, as I said earlier,
Mhm.
and you had frog's legs.
Mm.
And Vincent's
At the
Counter-
same meal?
No.
Oh.
no, but his coworker took us out for the day, I think,
Mhm.
touring. And she was lovely, and she thought we were the best people ever because John ate frog's legs. And she said most Americans, well, most people, non-French, turn
Yeah.
up their nose at frog. And John
Just
was
like
like, yeah, he's like,
Frog legs-
Whatever.
Frog legs are pretty
Yeah.
tasty.
I mean, they're basically like chicken wings.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's all they
exactly.
are.
But she, she took a weekend day out of her schedule to spend the time with us, and
That's nice.
it was really fun. Yeah, she showed us all of Paris, her side of Paris, which was really fun.
How long were you there?
In Paris, just a weekend, but
Yeah.
as Trish said, we were in Germany for 2 weeks, I think, before that.
Oh.
And the story that didn't get included, but she alluded to, was her driving in Germany.
Oh.
Oh, I've heard that a little bit.
OMG. Everyone before we went said, in Germany, you have to drive fast. There's this
Right.
thing called the Autobahn, and
Yeah.
the flash lights. If somebody's flashing their lights behind you, you better get out of the way. They drive really fast, and all she heard was drive fast in Germany.
Not
What-
the Autobahn.
What she didn't connect was that it was only supposed to be on the Autobahn, and we were there for a long time. We had boxes and boxes of training materials and stuff, so we had to rent a car. And she volunteeed to be the driver, and
I mean, how
Let
well did
that
you know
happen.
her driving at that point?
well, I knew it well after that. But
Yeah.
we get in the car, she hits the gas, and we are flying through these towns. I'm navigating, and there's other funny stories about the navigation, but her driving through this town. Only later, as we're talking to our German counterparts, they're like, "What? You do know there's speed limits in the cities?" It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh
It's
my
just
God.
the Autobahn.
There's-
Just on basically the freeway, right?
Mhm.
You just drive fast on the open roads, not through the towns where there are pedestrians and other cars.
Okay, there's another story in this book that where mom is talking about Albion Farm. They had like a watch your speed like thing where it like displays how fast you're going when you drive past it. And she jokes about how she was flying past it to see if she could beat the high score, which totally sums up her driving.
God.
So Al's fart didn't make it to the book, and the curling iron didn't make it.
No.
Curling
those are-
iron.
Yeah. those are
Owl's
the-
fart?
Owl's fart.
Fart.
Who knows German?
Ausfahrt, yeah, means, as we now know, it means exit. And our
Okay.
counterparts were so lovely. Our German counterparts gave us very detailed directions on how to drive from the Dusseldorf airport or Munich airport, wherever we were, to their office. They spelled everything out a little too clearly because they put the name of the road and then they put in parentheses Ausfahrt, which, as I'm reading the directions, I took as the name, and it turns out Ausfahrt means exit.
Yeah.
So as we're driving down the road, I'm like,
Owl's fart.
and so you're all, off the freeway. We got so dang lost. And then by the time we read and reread, we're like, oh, there must be
They all
something.
say Owl's fart.
Yeah, they all say Ausfahrt. We made our way back to the road, and yes, we eventually made it to the office way later than they expected us. And then when we told them about our little misunderstanding, how English can be ambiguous or whatever, and it spread like fire because anywhere we were going, they'd be looking at it. They're like, "Hi, nice to meet you, Ausfahrt." Yeah,
That's a German sense of humor. for you.
yeah. And on the same trip is when your mother discovered that voltage converters are
Oh, no.
equally important as the plug converters in foreign country.
Plug, but not a voltage.
Yeah, so she took her curling iron and plugged it in because she had the converter that allowed her to plug it into the
Right.
wall.
But didn't have the voltage.
She didn't have the voltage converter, and she came knocking on my door, and I opened my door to find. Oh Lord, I'm not a very good friend. She opened the door, and she was holding her bangs. And what did I do? I laughed until I almost
Peed
peed
yourself.
myself because she had clipped it into her hair. Thank God she didn't curl it.
Right.
She just clamped it, and it burned the hair off in an instant. Her bangs were attached to the curling iron. And she comes down knocking on my door looking for sympathy or help or something. And I'm laughing so hard. Like you, Ryan, I can't even breathe.
Oh man!
Yeah.
Wow.
So the good news is she had a little fringe left. So that she could
Just enough.
Yeah, just enough. And
Her hair was so thin too. Like,
oh my God.
It probably didn't take much to just
no.
burn it off.
And that good smell. Yeah. Oh my God.
Wow.
Was this at the start of the trip? Or?
Yeah, we
It
were
was
still.
before-
It had to have
before
been. It was
France.
before France.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
So it had to have been at the beginning, and we,
Oh.
she took one for the team because we all learned how important converters were. That little kit they give you. There's many pieces for a reason.
You gotta use them all.
Yeah. Oh my Lord.
Wow. I don't think I had heard that story.
Oh God, it
Oh.
was sad and funny. At this. No,
It's a good thing that she didn't like knock out all the electricity in buildings, because I've heard stories of people not using the converters and just
Yeah.
causing all the breakers to flip.
yeah. I mean, a curling iron would be about as low as you could get. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's
Fortunately for all of us, it was safe, but not for her.
Oh my
God, it was
goodness.
so
I just can't imagine opening a door and your friend standing there holding
her
bangs.
bangs on the curling iron. Yeah.
I have so many questions.
Yeah.
I bet you knew. You kind of probably knew right away. Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, looking at her hair, looking at her
you
hand,
need those
that
converters.
smell.
Oh yeah. I didn't think about the smell.
Yeah.
Oh. Any other good stories from
Germany?
from Germany and Paris? Apparently, John had 2 more in the bank there.
Yeah. Do you remember?
These are just things I've heard from Marilyn reminiscing, so I have no first person accounts. that I can
Other
think
than
of.
we were in France together, but I mean, for that weekend. So we did our business. It must have been, let's say, a Friday, and then we got
Right, but Trish was well behaved, so there's no stories to tell.
yeah.
From our
Other than the
time
hotel
together.
rooms were teeny tiny, and no, I can't think of anything else that was.
I'm just shocked. I guess you didn't know what a driver she was, because didn't she have minivan?
So
Mini
incidents?
driving.
So
stories.
we
That's
have
a whole tangent. Like
we
that should be a
have-
separate episode.
Yeah.
Maybe.
not only mom's driving record, but the driving records of all 3 of us is an episode unto itself.
Yeah.
Like there, There's a curse.
So this is before you knew about any of that, huh?
Yeah, I guess we probably wouldn't have had many opportunities to be in the car together or many reasons to be in the car together.
It definitely seems genetic after all the stories I've heard from y'all as well.
Yeah.
She flooded a van like
Oh.
that.
I mean, we might as well talk about some of them
Was
tonight.
honestly the most traumatizing thing ever.
Were you in the
Like,
van?
as a
Me
yes,
and
they were
Hannah.
both. Me, I was 5, and then like the van, like water's coming in the van. Like as a 5-year-old, that's like,
And you're
oh my
strapped to a
god,
car seat.
we're all about to die. Like I'm gonna drown. It was. I just remember like the only vivid memory I have is me and Matthew like up on the
bucket
armrest
seat.
of the cars screaming like we were losing it, and Mom was.
Where did this happen at?
In
the
Chattahoochee.
Chattahoochee Elementary.
In
The bus
like-
lane.
Like the little
In the
bus
bus
lane.
Wasn't she running
Oh,
late? And
So
she pulled
yes,
into the bus lane when
lane.
she
You're not
wasn't
supposed to, and the gutters were full or something. So
Well,
and
I
it
know
had
she
just
doesn't follow the rules of the road.
yeah, it had just rained. So I guess it was. I
It
mean,
was pouring rain while it was happening.
and
Hannah.
like looking back, the water didn't go that high up on Dad. Like it wasn't like we were gonna die.
You were not going to die.
but I felt like we were going
yeah,
to.
no, he had to wade in knee deep
Like
water.
when the car like went down, we felt like a plop. It was like we were floating. Like oh my god, yeah.
Water is not supposed to be in the vehicle.
No. And then all day at school, can the blue minivan please move from the bus? I just remember sitting in my classroom and I hear on the intercom, can the blue minivan please move? You're in the bus lane. Like, no, the car can't move.
The car
Dad-
never
Dad,
went
there's
to
a-
start again.
There's a funny story about that too. Actually, I think we did continue to drive that for a little
No,
while.
they took it to the shop. I think like the radio stuff was.
It had some electrical issues.
Yeah, no, but we kept driving it for a while. But no, that's not the funniest part of that. The reason it was stuck in the bus lane is because, like, so Dad hadn't gone to work yet.
I know because
And he gets
came to the
because
rescue.
I was at home when he picked up the phone and it was like, you did what?
Okay, so he goes,
Take you with him?
No, I was like
waiting for the
I was waiting for my bus. I was like, okay.
Stop.
no, but so
Upstairs.
he drives the truck like less than 2 miles. That's how close the elementary school is. He drives the truck over there,
Yeah.
and you know he has like a tow rope in the truck,
Mm-hmm.
and he pulls the tow rope out, getting ready to hook it up to the minivan. He hooks one end up to the truck, and he unrolls it, takes it over to the minivan. He gets to the end of it, and there's no hook on the other end. Somebody had cut the hook off.
Oh my god.
Mom had cut the hook off
Oh.
because she took Rachel and a bunch of her Girl Scouts on a camping trip
And they got stuck
in the
mud.
minivan. No. The minivan didn't get stuck in the mud.
So
A different vehicle got stuck in the mud. Mom had Dad's tow rope in the
Right.
minivan. She's like, oh, cool, we can actually help these people. And they did. They did get them out of the mud. But they couldn't figure out how to get the tow hook undone properly. So they just cut the rope, rolled it back up,
Throw it.
neglected to mention it to Dad. He takes it, puts it in his truck, and when he goes and tries to use it, he finds what happened to the hook?
So the tow truck took forever. It was like the whole day at school that the minivan was just
I had no idea that happened.
yeah, it was just
Hannah and Matthew Mudgett. This is their minivan.
Yeah.
Right there in neon sign.
I just remember us screaming our heads up and Mom being like, guys.
It's fine while her feet are in water.
And then Dad had to like carry us out
In your backpacks
Yeah,
and
like-
send you off to school.
And then I just had to go to class.
We just went to class.
You just had a traumatic experience.
Seriously, just sitting through class, like I just suffered so much trauma. Yeah, that was a
And
lot.
so another car was coming down, like when Dad was
Oh yeah,
there.
and she had to get out. Yeah, they were like, we're sinking. Like, yeah, I just remember we were on the hill and then she like was trying to back up once she realized that it was a pool of water and she was like, oh no, and I just remember trying to put the car in reverse. And then that's when we were like, flop, like into the water. Yeah.
Too bad you didn't have paddles. You could be
Yes.
on the road.
Seriously.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good story. Is that not in the book?
I don't remember being
That's,
in there.
I'm pretty positive.
Most of these are much older stories, but
yeah,
I
that
just
just should have been in there.
I can just picture Dawn though, like getting the call, the stomp, not saying anything to Rachel. She's
Yeah,
just like,
leaving.
I don't know what's going on, but I guess I'm going to school. And then getting there and pulling out the rope, like, I know how to fix this. It's fine. We're gonna get what the hell? Like,
So you were in like middle school. Then.
Yeah, because I was waiting because mine started later and I got myself on the bus. So I didn't have anybody driving me to school. Floating the rest of the way.
when did it like get out? Like before the end of the school day? Like you didn't have to walk back out to see your band still
No,
sitting there.
But
did
it
you?
was hours. Like it was hours.
I didn't remember it until Hannah mentioned it, but yeah, I like
vividly remember the interview.
the blue minivan.
It clearly left a traumatic mark.
And
on
I'm just
Hannah.
like sitting on the floor in my classroom, like.
Did people know it was y'all's van?
I don't think so.
Yes,
I
in my class they
probably
did.
did not say a word about it. I probably just was silent all
No,
day.
but I think it was pretty infamous. Like
Ugh.
that story would live to tell its tale. Like,
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And
That's-
then now you know never to drive.
Yeah, don't go on the bus lane.
If you ever see a sign that says "Don't drive if road is flooded," no matter how little is flooded, don't do it.
Yeah, that's what it really made me realize that you never know how deep a puddle is. Like, I'm extra cautious of the puddles now. You just never know.
That's why you're here in California where we get no rain.
True,
Yeah,
true.
there you go.
No puddles here to worry about. Yeah.
Problem solved.
Oh Lord.
So back in the States, in the South this time. Anybody else want to read Color Coded Wedding? Hannah, Rachel.
Hannah's like, do not ask me to read.
Please, no.
I can read it if
You
you
want to
want
read
me
it?
to.
Okay.
I would have had to practice and rehearse. Then I could read.
Do we need to pull out the popcorn reading? We just rotate
Yeah.
every paragraph. Somebody else needs to pick it up.
Make sure everyone's paying attention.
Oh, this is great. It pleases me to no end that I can tell this absolutely true story on my dear friend Marilyn. You might have seen her at the bookstore when you bought this book. She would be the attractive blonde trying to boycott sales of the book. Some stories are not to be in print, Trish. Now, promise me you'll take that story out. Promise me. I have my fingers crossed, okay? She knows, as I know, as you will soon know, that this particular story is a gem. Besides, I owe her for the whole French fried fish fiasco in 1989. See, one fish, two fish. If you are from the South, you are very familiar.
You're fine. Claws are fine. We're going to have some audio texture. There's dogs around.
Okay. If you are from the South, you are very familiar with a tradition at Southern weddings that there be a groom's cake as well as the traditional bride's cake. Perhaps if you saw the movie Steel Magnolias, you'll recall the armadillo cake they made and referred to as the groom's cake. That's not exactly a typical groom's cake, but it made for good screen appeal in the movie, I'm sure. There are regions other than the South that celebrate this tradition, and indeed other countries. If the term groom's cake is foreign to you, allow me to reveal the mystery. It's very simple. As the tradition goes, the groom's cake is typically chocolate with chocolate icing. The top of the cake is adorned with grapes to represent fertility. My friend Marilyn is not from the South. However, she and her mother were invited to attend the wedding of a dear friend. He was marrying a woman from Huntsville, Alabama, and the wedding was being held there. It is important to note, only because the story makes no sense without this detail, that the groom was Caucasian while the bride was African American. I did not know Marilyn at the time she attended this wedding. Years later, she and I met when I moved to California, and we were both employed by the same software manufacturer. It was, at the time, a small startup company. As is often the case in such small companies, you get to know your coworkers quite well. She and I became very good friends and remain so today, at least until the publication of this book. At some point during our early friendship, she had occasion to glance through her wedding album. She found herself looking at a photograph of a groom's cake at my wedding reception. Oh my, you had a chocolate wedding cake? I explained the tradition of a groom's cake and a bride's cake. I will never forget her reaction. It was a cross between shock and dismay. Why should she care about this little Southern tradition? She could only look at the photo and say with a hint of embarrassment, "Oh no, you're kidding. Really? You mean it's tradition? I'm so embarrassed. Just wait until I tell my mother." Marilyn began to relay her experience at her friend's wedding. Naturally, the groom's family was white, as are most of his groomsmen. It followed that the bride's family was black, as were most of her bridesmaids. That is to say, the bride's side and the groom's side of the church were somewhat easy to distinguish. It was a lovely service. However, my mother and I thought they had carried things a bit too far when we arrived at the reception to see a white vanilla cake and a black chocolate cake. We thought, well, I'm not sure what we thought. We thought it was some form of a joke, albeit an odd one. We didn't realize there was some sort of tradition behind it. This wedding had taken place at least 10 years earlier. Imagine Marilyn and her mother, and perhaps other non-Southern guests at the wedding thinking all this time that it had been a humorous way to acknowledge their interracial marriage. Well, who knows? Perhaps it was, and the Southern tradition just made it a little easier to get away with.
She's embarrassed.
Segregated wedding cakes is what you thought it was.
100%. 100%.
Did you attempt to eat any of the chocolate cake?
I don't like chocolate
should.
cake.
Oh,
so
okay.
I probably didn't. Yeah, I probably didn't. But I think exactly as she said, I saw a picture in her wedding album. It's like, what? You had a chocolate cake
Right.
too?
They're so
So
black.
weird. Yeah, right. You're not black. Oh, it was so funny. So funny. And to this day, like even recently, when I meet new people who say they're from somewhere in the
Yeah.
South, it's like, do you know what a groom's cake is? The answer is always, of course I do. But yeah, had never heard of such a thing. So
That's on par. Like that story is similar to the Rachel telling me about the leaded and unleaded
That's a great story.
punch.
That's in this
Was
book
that
too.
that's in
That
the
was
book?
at their wedding, yeah.
That was at their wedding. Yeah, the alcoholic.
Papa
and
was
the
definitely
alcoholic.
hitting up the leaded line.
Yeah. You know, I remember hearing a story about Papa, like when he was in the army, he said that people, like the other enlisted men, would respect him when he would drink his whiskey straight
Yeah.
because they would all mix it with Coke. And Papa's reasoning was, well, I don't want to ruin the taste of Coca-Cola with the taste of whiskey. And that's why he did it. But yeah, Mima was a teetotaler to the point where, like, there was no alcohol allowed in the house at all, even at Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And but Mom wanted to have a champagne toast
Yeah.
at her wedding.
Champagne punch.
Well, I think actually she wanted real champagne, but she knew she couldn't get away with that with Mima, so she compromised with the champagne punch. And so there
Was
was
supposed to disguise it or something?
no, like there were two
it's
options.
watered down. I mean, so it's
They're not
probably not
drinking
as
actual glasses
Right.
of wine.
Yeah.
Punch. Fancy.
Yeah, and so they had the one that didn't have alcohol in it, was just sparkling whatever. And then they had the one with alcohol. And I believe Mom was the one who came up with the idea to label them unleaded and leaded.
Very clever.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that someone accidentally drank the wrong one.
Oh, I'm sure that happened.
Oh,
Like
Got
they
too
got confused.
drunk. And...
No, I don't think anybody got drunk off of that.
Off champagne punch.
I mean, you know.
I don't actually ever really remember her drinking alcohol.
Dad-
Do you, John? Do you remember any time we were together?
She only ever talked about getting Long Island iced teas.
That's what Dad said. Long Island iced
Well, in
teas.
New Orleans, you guys were drinking.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, let's hear that.
You got
story.
drunk with
that's
Mom
true.
in New Orleans?
No, we did not get drunk. But,
They got plastered.
They came back with a bunch of beads.
that's true. True. We went to New Orleans together because we would do girlfriend trips. She and Carol and I would meet in a different city that none of us had ever been to, and we went to New Orleans, and we ate at a lot of different restaurants. And at one of them, we asked, I guess the bartender was our waiter or something. We asked him what was good, what we should order, and he said he had created this drink called a voodoo. And we said, sure, we'll take it. And we loved it so much that he wrote down the ingredients and dated and signed it. And I still have that. And unfortunately, the restaurant doesn't exist
Oh,
anymore
no.
because I'd love to go back there and have him make that. But yeah, she did. But really, as far as other stuff, I remember your dad drank beer all the time, but she hardly ever drank anything. that I
Turned
can
out the
recall.
secret was the voodoo.
Yeah, it was good.
Do you remember what's in it?
Yes, it had blue curacao
Okay.
because that's where you got the blue. I'll share it. I have it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pinned to my wall. But definitely didn't get drunk. Sorry. not her thing.
So in the way she starts that story, it kind of made it sound like y'all were at the same wedding, but you weren't. You were just at a wedding in the South.
Like she said,
And then she
many
met
years
you later.
Yeah, many years later, and it wasn't until I was looking at her wedding album that I had this revelation
Mhm.
that how weird that you had the same kind of chocolate cake that I'd never seen at a wedding before. And she's like, yeah, it's like the dog's not black. I'm like,
Yeah.
so confused when the story kind of starts to come out, and then
So if you never looked at her wedding album to this day, do you think an opportunity ever would have come up for you to?
I don't know, because I haven't been to many Southern weddings. You guys got married in the South, but you didn't have that.
No, we had 3 different cakes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Both
no,
of
I
our
don't think so.
both of our cousins who have gotten married, though, they had groom's cakes at their
Yeah.
weddings too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
My
But
brothers
not
had
like
groom's
Huntsville.
cakes,
That's so random.
Well, and I think
Huntsville.
a groom's cake on its own wouldn't have been the thing, but the fact that the groom
Yeah.
was Caucasian and the bride was African American was what stood out. And I gotta say, the way that she wrote the story is way better than I could ever describe it. She nailed it. She nailed it for sure.
So would you still be her friend after publishing that?
I would. Yeah, and she always has been the best storyteller. So she could take any situation,
Mhm.
as she said, maybe the 80-20 rule, but no matter what, when she told the story, it was better, more clear, funnier, all the way around than anything. Even if we lived it, she could tell it better.
Aw. Those are the good friends, the good story. Carly's like that, good storytellers.
Well, she always had the sequence right too. I have a hard time going from the beginning, getting all of the things in the right order, getting
Mhm.
to the conclusion, but she was always a natural and wonderful storyteller.
Mm.
So even in writing, I think she's even better than in person.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any stories in the book that are your favorite besides the ones that you're in?
Oh,
Don't you remember?
I mean, the one right after the color coded wedding one, old what's his name? That one's really good. But it's about the night that Miss Anita met Paul on a date with someone else.
Oh, well, and I don't remember how that story is written, but that's the story, probably one of the earliest stories I ever heard from her. When we all met, we were all pre-children, so we were newly married. We got married in 86, they got married in 87, and we were all working together in 88, like 87, 88. So with, very near to the time that we got married. So we kind of went through those things together, but hearing each other's meeting wedding stories was so funny. And she tells the story of how there were 3 couples at this gathering.
It was a Navy ball thing.
Right. And the girls were asked to be blind dates for these men. And out of it came 3 weddings.
That's wild.
But 2 couples ended up with different people.
Mhm.
Paul and Anita had different dates, but ended up together.
Because they kind of go as like a blind.
Yeah,
and then you meet the other
Trish
people
and
that
Dawn
are-
both went home that night and said, "I think I met the person I'm going to."
Actually,
That's-
in
that
this
is
that's
just
in the
crazy.
story, she says that was not the same night. She did meet Dad at the same type of thing, but it was a different event.
Hmm.
And the story, I mean, like we should probably do this story with Miss Anita.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
But-
any stories that where they mention
Brian's
people?
never met.
I've never
me.
met Miss Anita. Yeah, I know that's wild.
I mean, apparently
Well,
Mary
Mary Miles
Miles,
getting
yeah,
married
Mary
in
Miles
May,
is getting
so-
married.
Oh, she is. Oh, I didn't know that.
in May.
There we go.
Well, I don't know if we'll be getting an invite,
Well,
but
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Hannah's gonna get an invite. I would be surprised if I get a personal invite.
You'll just need to get me in connection with Anita.
I mean, we could talk about the fact that Mima was a pyromaniac. That's the first story that she puts in the book.
And there are actually a couple of the stories about her
Pyromania.
yeah,
Wow, we gotta get
her love of
her
fire
kids on.
that aren't finished, and so I got to get them
We
from
gotta get
a few other people.
her actual children,
Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
to fill in the details about her.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking through, just double check and make sure that those are I'm pretty sure those are the only 2
I think so.
where you're mentioned by name.
And did she cover your name up in any of them?
No, no. Did she, when she wrote these stories, did she tell you she was putting them in there at all? Like, I was curious how much she like told other people, like that she was writing or
I
anything
think
like
I
that.
had some awareness. I don't think she has permission, but I'm pretty sure she told me.
Right.
Told.
Yeah, told me that it was going to be in there, and I knew she was writing something because she'd always been such an amazing writer.
Yeah.
So it made sense that it would end up being a book about the South. But yeah, no, I don't. She definitely didn't ask.
I mean, one story I want to mention that is definitely not in the book is one that Aunt Julia actually told you and me back in summer 2019 about the guy who was on the mailing list when she was in the hospital who had never actually met her in person.
I vaguely remember. You have to remember the number of stories Julia has told me.
Yeah, that one stands out to me. So when she was in the hospital, Aunt Julia was sending out mailing lists for everybody who was interested in getting updates about Mom.
Right.
And the list kept growing and growing and growing until, like, she said, I think there were like 1,000 people on there. She couldn't remember the exact number, but she said like it was a ton of people. Mm-hmm. And she said eventually one of those people admitted to me that he had never actually met Mom in person because her job was being on the phone doing tech support for medical equipment. And this guy in Belgium called one day and he had this problem that they ended up spending the entire day on the phone trying to figure out. And of course, so by the end of that day, Mom knew his name, his wife's name, all of his kids' names, what grades they were in, what sports they played. His wife's birthday, his birthday, like all of it. And so, the next time he has to call for tech support, he's like, "Oh, is Trish available?" Or actually, like I think like they kept like bumping into each other, and eventually he started requesting her every time he called. And so I don't know how long this relationship went on, but like they became really great phone friends over the course of it. And so eventually he comes to find out that Mom was sick in the hospital. Right. And he hears that people are like getting email updates. And so he's like, well, hey, can I be put on the list too? And he gets on the list. And eventually he's corresponding with Aunt Julia about it. And he's like, I have a confession to make. I never actually met Trish in person. But yeah, no, that's the kind of person Mom was. Like she would just, according to Aunt Julia, the way she described it is, if she decided you were hers, she had you.
That's a collector.
That is to a T fits the Southern profile of every Southerner I know. I'm gonna learn everything about you in a 5-minute conversation.
Grasp on.
And I'm never.
Well, even Lucas will talk about every time he talks to somebody at work. From the South, he comes home. He's like, I talked to somebody from the South today. They were so nice. Like, we had a nice conversation. Yep.
Well, thank you all for sitting down and doing this. It was enjoyable, and also it's nice to hear people who knew her tell me more about it. So, thank you all.
Nice giggles.
Yeah.